Well, this is our first space heater of 2023. We're doing this on Sunday evening, February 19th. Kevin, do you remember the last time we officially did a space heater?
Was it November?
Was it? I mean, not without me having to actually look this up. I could right now. I could look this up.
No, I'm on it.
Oh, you're ahead of me on this?
Yes, I'm looking.
Okay. Tell me what you find out.
Yep, November 6th.
What was the topic? What did we talk about?
We talked about Kaguya.
Oh, was it the Anime News Network purchase?
Yeah, it was the NN purchase.
Yes.
And James talked about the discotheque presentation and then the Crunchyroll price increase for us.
It was just stuff that just grabbed our attention. It might have been because it had been a while since we had taped or something.
Yeah, and we talked about, basically the whole Kadokawa ANN thing.
Okay. So it's been 1, 2, 3 months.
A little over.
Yeah, almost over 3 months.
Yeah.
Since we did a space heater. So, yeah, this one's a little bit, how do you put this? Unplanned?
I wouldn't say that, actually.
No, we did want to do this. Okay, so a little bit of background. Kevin and I, on Valentine's Day, out of all things, out of all days, that was the premiere of the Kaguya-Sama movie, which had its North American debut in theaters. And if you know about how anime is handled in movie theaters in North America, it's I find it a little weird. It's just that it seems like, is it just me? Does it feel like anime features in North American movie theaters tend to be rather limited?
Generally.
I mean, I think Mo probably can say this a lot better than either of us could, since
it's a different story when it's a Dragon Ball movie, but almost every other movie release, yes, that is the case.
Well, do you think, first of all, with Demon Slayer about to have another movie in early March, do you think that dynamic is changing? Do you think Dragon Ball's not alone in that category, or may not be alone much longer? Or do you think it's still Dragon Ball?
I still think it's mostly Dragon Ball, because I think of the My Hero Academia movies and Jujutsu Kaisen 0 and even the Sailor Moon movie a few years back.
Much less Sword Art Online, right?
Like, those did get more weeks. There wouldn't be showings every day, but there would be several showings throughout the week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when we left Kaguya-Sama, they were still doing Sword Art Online screenings, but it was just the one screening of the day. Because it had been out for, I believe, at least a week and a half to 2 weeks by that point.
Which movie again?
The second Sword Art Online progressive movie, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's the second one.
Okay.
Pretty sure it wasn't the first one. And yeah, I mean, Sword Art Online is a more popular franchise, so it made a bit more sense. But then usually you get about a week. And by a week, I mean you get maybe 3 to 5 screenings spread across 3 days, and that's it.
Kaguya-Sama, I'm looking this up now on at least the Cineplex app. And there were screenings today, and there's more set for actually a good chunk of the coming week. At least until
it did get more screenings. Okay.
Yeah, at least until the normal Friday premiere week. So yeah, Monday for Family Day. We are taping this for those of you outside of Ontario at the very least. I think most of Canada is experiencing a holiday tomorrow. The U.S. I know is experiencing a holiday tomorrow too. I forgot what day it is. What's the flavor of the month holiday in the States tomorrow?
Unless you work for the federal government.
Oh yeah, that. Or where I work, for that matter. But yes, but tomorrow is Family Day in Ontario. That's a designated provincial holiday. As I said, most provinces have a holiday of some sort, but yes, it's a provincial holiday. And I'm looking up the listings here. Yes, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So Kaguya-Sama movie will continue tomorrow. Its screenings, and I'm looking up the Young Dundas seats for the 2 p.m. showing. Looks like there's a half.
Oh,
Was
so
it?
it is mostly full.
Well, half full for that.
That's
Half
not
full.
too bad.
That's not
It
too
is
bad.
downtown, so it
Yeah,
makes sense. And you're near there are what there's one university right there, another university not that far away,
yeah,
so it makes sense.
yeah. Well,
Young people congregate there.
sure. I mean, you're in the heart of the city. You're by the Eaton Center. You're there, right? We were somewhere else when we saw that.
Yeah.
We saw the movie in Mississauga on Winston Churchill. They're basically at the Oakville border, so the western tip of
Yeah.
Mississauga, right?
Although, yeah, it's technically Oakville based on how the borders are drawn, but yeah, it's like right there.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah, so that's probably the best way to put it. I think we're on the other side of of Winston Churchill, so that puts
Yes.
us in at that point in Oakville.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're on the was it the north side or the west side?
Yeah, the west side.
West side of Winston Churchill.
Yes.
So yeah, but basically we're straddling that border, right? So the other end of Mississauga, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
in that sense.
They don't do
And
a lot of screenings at Courtney Park anymore.
no, not many screenings. No, no.
It used
Well,
to
I don't.
be like they do some at Courtney Park, but I don't recognize or notice them doing it that often anymore, if
You
at
mean
all.
there was?
Yeah, they've done Courtney Park screenings every now and then for anime. I
Hmm.
saw the Sailor Moon movie at Courtney Park.
How long ago was that? Just jog my memory.
Well, probably 2017 or 2018, perhaps.
Oh,
Like
roughly 5
I'm
years ago.
estimating, to be honest. It's been quite a while,
Yeah. Well,
unless I purposely looked this up.
when Square One had that Cineplex theater all those years ago, we ran into each other watching a Trigun movie. I think, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that was in the Empire Theater in the mall, not the one outside the mall.
Yeah. Oh, it had become an empire by that point. Oh,
Yes.
okay, okay. I'm trying to remember a little bit about the timeline of that specific theater within Square One.
I think I won the tickets for that screening, actually.
Yeah. And then yeah, and then it was originally a Cineplex, but then they bought out the Famous Players brand, and then they moved all their operations across the street because their Famous Players had the Coliseum, which is that huge multiplex that sits behind Square One. If you know the area, and they gave it the Cineplex branding, but it left the other one basically abandoned, and Empire Theaters moved in there, and they were there for some years, but that's been long gone, and I don't know what they use the space for now.
It's
I
still
really
empty.
yeah, it's still empty to this moment.
Yes. I know they want to redevelop that space, but I don't know what it is anymore because I no longer work for them.
Anywhere in Square One for that matter.
Yeah, because disclosure, I did used to work for Oxford at one point.
Oxford
So
being the owner of Square One.
yes, so well, at least for okay, going back to Sailor Moon quickly, it was the Sailor Moon R movie, and that was March 1st, 2017.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, I'm just trying to just wrap my head, and for like we can talk about it the whole bunch of things, but really there isn't it's really just Cineplex and then maybe a bunch of smaller independents now, I guess. Empire as a brand doesn't really exist for movie theaters anymore, does it? Or is it more has it just retreated into its home region again, which is out east, I believe. I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember if they're all landmarks now or if it just fizzled out as a whole. I don't
Yeah.
remember.
I guess because Empire in this case is also the same company that owns Sobeys.
Oh
People
no, I just double checked. They did. They sold the business. They sold the theater part of the business.
okay.
So they sold some of them to Cineplex and they sold some of them to Landmark. So the
And
ones in Ontario were Landmarks.
Mm-hmm.
in the end.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to just remember the timeline. It's been so long. I mean, that space has been abandoned literally for some years.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the subject at hand. Mo was when I talked with Mo on this, he was a little, I wouldn't say surprised or disappointed. I don't know what the word would be, but I just thought he thought it would have been cool if we went to see that at Young Dundas.
Oh yeah, that would have been nice, to be
Would have
honest.
been, yeah, it would have been a stretch for both of us. We are like, well, distance wise, I think it's about the same for me, but it's just easier for me to get to Winston Churchill. But it would have been interesting to see it downtown because for the reasons you already outlined, it's just
It's harder for me without planning further in advance because for me, I do need to take the go
mhm. Yeah,
because I hate paying for parking
I can understand.
and
It's almost a day trip. I won't go that far, but
I wouldn't go far as say it's a day trip, but
it's a trip.
yeah,
It's
it's
an
it,
afternoon.
it takes some planning. I can't just on a whim just go because taking the go would cost me maybe $16 round trip.
Yeah, not always worth it. And I think I'd be looking at $7 myself
Like
for
I
at
would
least to
want
get to
to at
see.
least be doing something else.
If you're doing something like that,
Yeah,
you'd have
so
to make an afternoon of it.
that's why like I would need to plan my day if I
Yeah,
was to do that.
but I think uh, most point was, because we'd be amongst other fans who would, a larger group and a probably more into it group, a more rowdy group watching it. But that doesn't, that kind of is a disservice to the people we did watch the movie with
Mhm.
in Mississauga and Oakville. I mean, I think like there's fans obviously more further in the Western GTA,
Yeah,
and this was an obvious spot for them. I think next after that is Burlington.
I think so, yeah.
So
It's also because they didn't have screenings planned out for the following week at that point.
mhm.
So we couldn't even check to see if there were screenings next week because that hadn't been decided.
They
So,
only had the 14th and the 18th yesterday.
mhm.
At the time we decided. Now, since then, they've extended it over the entire week, pretty much.
Yes.
So that's fine, and that's good. It'll be cool if people if it's in your area and you have that chance, check it out. However, and this is where we start to really get into it. First of all, what was your impression of the atmosphere in the theater watching that when we went to watch it?
Thought it was a decent atmosphere. It wasn't rowdy, it wasn't like rambunctious, which is fine. People laughed at the right moments.
Mm-hmm.
People laughed at some of the funnier moments, as you would hope.
Yeah, it did. But well, first, my own impression. Um, well, one is more off topic, and one is an actual impression of the movie of the crowd there. First thing that uh, well, my own first impression after watching the movie, or well, especially after watching the movie, is if nothing else, it's convinced me that if I'm gonna buy the manga, it'll be traditional book copies, not digital, like I probably joked around about last week. Right, that's how much I enjoyed it. Second, um, I felt like the oldest person in there.
That's fine.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's what it felt like. I see a whole cross section of fandom, or well, really just youth fan of the our demographic now, right?
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, you're right. It is fine. It's just I did feel old in there a little bit. It didn't really. I didn't have time to be really depressed about that. It's just I really want to watch the movie.
That's all that matters, right?
Right. And this is one of those. The movie, getting a chance to watch the movie happened at a perfect storm for me personally, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of where I am in keeping up with this story, because it had been a couple months since I finished watching like the three cores of the TV series to this point.
Mm-hmm. That was a slow burn for you. Like you were you were getting along it as you did.
Yeah,
You took your time with it.
yeah, I did, probably more so than I wanted to admit. But and it's almost the same way with the manga reading, but it's sped up since then. And where I was in the manga, I think I think it was on volume 13. I had just started volume 13. So, and that was basically the school festival, basically the events leading up into the movie. So
Mm-hmm.
I was basically manga wise where just before the movie.
Ah.
And by my own admission, today over the last couple hours, I read basically what is the manga adaptation, or not the adaptation, but the manga, the movie's plot as it was depicted in the manga. That was as it was originally written in the manga. I think that's where I want to go because obviously the manga is the base,
Yes.
right? So now I got to read the plot of the movie in the manga, and it's fairly. How do I put this? It's we had this long talk last week about adaptations, or not really long talk, but it sort of came up a little bit about adaptations. And I guess when I re-listened to the episode, and that's why I chose the title I chose for it, how like it's that age-old debate we will always have. How faithful should they be to its original source material? The movie was very faithful to the manga. Had its own little tweaks, but it was pretty faithful. And and to me, it also hints at it hints at later what will be depicted later on too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the manga kind of did that as well. It kind of hinted a few scenes that I thought, and it looks like we'll get to see how it plays out in the manga, and I guess we'll see it in the TV series too, because I don't doubt that we'll see the more of Kaguya-Sama animation. So
Yeah, I'd be shocked at this point if they do not adapt it all the way through.
I could see that. Well, it's enough. It gets enough attention. It's enough of a popular IP now. Put aside the whole Dragon Ball, Jujutsu Kaisen, One Punch Man, etc. It
And there's
had
an ending in sight
yeah, yeah.
because
There's
now it
a
is over.
well, the manga is over too, right? So we know where it'll end, and the manga sits like the movie sits at basically the halfway point of the plot. I mean, the manga went for 28 volumes. The movie is set basically in the middle of volume 14 and the entirety of volume 15. So it's at the halfway point. There's a little bit to go, but I think there's enough. The IP is popular enough; they can probably do another 3 cores in a movie again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but it had me thinking about a bunch of other things, and this is also probably in relation to Sword Art Online, certainly in relation to Demon Slayer, almost certainly. And it like a couple weeks ago when we talked about awards, right? And there was a category for best motion picture. And yes, this is you can tell that this was a motion picture. Animation quality was higher than you would have seen in the television series, or frames per second. It just had that movie feel to it. Even though at times the pacing did feel like a handful of episodes, like 3-4 episodes of the show strung together. But you could feel it was a movie, both in the animation quality and I guess just sitting within it with an audience. And you're right, they gasped, they reacted at the right times. But I remember a couple weeks ago, Kevin, when you mentioned you have mixed feelings about movie nominees that are based on currently running television series instead and being lopped in the same category as standalone true standalone features. Or you can jog my memory. Did I get that wrong?
More or less, I would say I don't like those being lumped in together when you have your award show as like you try to give it off as something more grand, but it is a popularity contest.
Well, especially when there's fan voting involved.
So because it's the fan votes that affect the award results and not what the judges think, that changes things.
Hmm.
Now, if there were both components, then it doesn't matter to me. Because yes, I'm happy if the fans get their vote. That's great. But if we're talking from like an objective, critical perspective, more often than not, those adaptations, those movie adaptations, don't hold a candle to your Inu-Oh or your Perfect Blue or
Dare you say
your
anything?
name
Yeah, I was
or
about to say
5
anything
centimeters per second or Summer Wars and so on and so forth. Well, Summer Wars is fine. I should have just said the girl who's up through time.
Hosoda. You could have just said Hosoda.
Yeah.
You could have said Shinkai, right?
More
And
not to say that they never do, but more often than not, those movies are not canonical. They're made to entertain.
but that
And
like
even if they're and no, that's not to say that the others that the critically acclaimed ones don't entertain, but they're not made to be criticized in the same way as the other more standalone movies that come out. Like I wouldn't critique, say, I don't know. I wouldn't critique Bad Boys in the same way as There Will Be Blood or Brokeback Mountain.
quasi out borderline art house type things. I wouldn't say
Mhm.
like I mean I think I kind of understand the tone you're the comparison you're trying to make. It's just that my dilemma with it is these are extensions of the television series. Demon Slayer, when that came out, that was an immediate continuation.
Yes.
Kaguya-Sama is an immediate continuation from where the TV series left off, and in many ways serves as an advertisement for whatever else there is in the mix, in the ecosystem.
Now, if those movies just truly did impress in such a way that it really made me, think about the themes that are going on during the film as I'm watching it, then that's fine. That's great. That'd be cool. That's awesome. But more often than not, that's not the case.
Well, yeah, I guess so.
More
And
like when I go to those movies, I usually just expect to be entertained, and they usually achieve that.
yeah, it did. But I think if there's something positive about doing this in the movie in movie form, sometimes it helps punctuate a few things, right? Punctuate a few little motivations of the characters, especially of the two main characters, right?
Of
I
course.
remember what I said when I my reaction when we saw some of these when I saw some of it play out. I mean, as I said, this is can't well as you kind of hinted, this is in the plot line, canonical, like the and really the maybe the exception. It's becoming more the norm of using a movie for a presently running series to have it actually fit in the timeline of the TV series. I mean, I don't recall Pokemon movies really doing that. Pokemon movies, when back in the day, I always like my memories of them were they can still be sort of enjoyed standalone. This one you probably but now we're with features of this ilk. You probably would have had to be familiar with the plot to that point. I mean, that's the impression I'm getting. So, I mean, that was the case with with the two most recent ones, with Demon Slayer and this, maybe Sword Art Online too, and Jujutsu Kaisen. Somebody correct me. I guess I'll admit I haven't watched, but you had to have had some familiarity with the plot to that point. At least have a good idea, right? And understand what just happened in the television series because as I said, the events of the movie take place right after. So, but what the movie also kind of served to do, and maybe telling that this part of the story or the story to this point, is that we understood some of the motivations of Shirogane and Kaguya. We had a sense of it already, but they kind of punctuated it in the movie. Why they act the way they do, and that their motivations are pretty deep. The way they look at it, and yeah, kind of empathize a little bit more, right? So I mean, that was my takeaway after watching the movies, and then rereading it in the manga too, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I mean, to me, the movie ended up being a great advertisement for the manga for me. Boy, the ecosystem uh, doing its job almost perfectly on me, right? And because then because of how long it took me to get through the television series and the manga, I admit there were parts that I missed, little hints that I missed. So it's making me want to, read a little slower now, or at least try and absorb everything a little bit more as I read the current volumes that I have.
Mhm.
So I've grown to really appreciate it a lot more rereading the story now, having watched the movie. I said the media mix, the perfect storm for the media mix. So that was what I got from it. But it also made me just take a longer look at the manga, and things as I've continued to read the manga, some things really start to pop out to me. Right, like I'm holding a copy of Volume 16 in my hands. Right, and two things in the art style of Akasaka or out to me. And I hinted some of this to you already, Kevin.
Mhm.
The eyes. We constantly like over my time in the fandom, people often love to talk about the eyes of anime characters. They're big. Well, often that's a stereotype. They're very big. But Akasaka is really impressive. Really like this is the first time I've really been drawn to the use of eyes in character designs, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can like what's the old adage? Eyes are a window into someone's soul.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. He uses it perfectly. As well as like I can't recall how an effective use of how you design eyes on characters. I cannot recall that. This is the first time I could really this is really the first time where I see it really used. To some degree I saw it in Kenshin. This is the first time I've really noticed it, to see how he uses eyes on characters, and maybe even more notably, how he sometimes doesn't put them on others. Because he wants you to view the characters at that moment in a certain way. And maybe that way is maybe how the main character at that moment is looking at other characters. So I was really that's something that really impressed me about the art style here. The other thing is more, I think, a little bit more picky. But this one didn't come to me nearly as much as I kind of read up about it. But now I see it. The way that he makes out his speech bubbles. Do you know where I'm about to go with this one, or do you kind of have an idea where what I'm thinking with this one?
I might, but go on.
It's just sometimes like his use of speech bubbles, the way he surrounds their bubbles, the way he outlines their bubbles, sometimes with more curves and rounded borders, sometimes with more sharper borders. Sometimes he puts them in black or white backgrounds. And often that's just more to depict the moods of their characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and maybe their mindset at that point. If he doesn't use a speech bubble, it's sometimes it's just more of a thought, or what they're thinking, right? Or maybe it's their. I think some people kind of praised his use of how he used it for Igami, for you, because of where his mental state. Because he's if you've read the story, you know that he's gone through a lot, and I think it was had a rougher edge initially, but then it kind of softened. And sometimes, I'm just looking through some of this now, just rifling through it, and maybe and I'm holding volume 16. It's probably not as good an example as volume 15, since I said that's where the movie's plot played out, right? So give me a second. Let me just get that for a second. Because I know that in that volume, he used a lot more of those. He used a lot more of the black backgrounds. He used it a lot more in flashbacks, I think, and maybe to depict a certain personality trait coming out for certain characters. So those are the two takeaways I got from reading the manga recently, anyway. But yeah, it's become a lot more of a page turner. So there's that. Okay. So I think we've had this little discussion before about rom-coms, right?
Yeah.
Manga rom-coms. What would be like? I've never hidden my admiration and how I rank Kimagure Orange Road and Maison Kuku as two of my top 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those were probably their generation's definitive rom-coms, right? The Maison Koku in the early 80s, Kimagure Orange Road in the mid to late 80s, maybe even early 90s. And then you go through the history of our fandom over the years. I think.
Are we just before we go further? Are we Are we purely talking male targeted romances? Or are we including female targeted romances
I
as
guess
well?
more male ones, yeah, because okay, I think you know you probably have a better sense of the female targeted ones, right?
A little
So,
bit.
so maybe you can help me out. What goes parallel with these? What
Well, I
else
can't
could be
speak
in
for
this?
the older ones because I did not watch Creamy Mommy. I did not watch Utena, regrettably. I did not watch. I didn't watch a lot of that older shojo stuff, to be honest.
Hmm. I guess, yeah. I guess we talk like when we talk. I guess when we talk more, like I'm talking more about the shojo type. I got not shojo. The shojo.
The shonen
The
romances, right?
shonen
Yes.
shonen type, right? I get my terms mixed up. Shonen and seinen styles. So where do we go now?
Hmm.
So okay, so when we go to more of the seinen and shonen styles, I know that there's differences, but I'm trying to kind of
Are we talking just notable ones
yeah, I guess.
as a whole, or we're talking just like acclaimed ones? Because, for example, Tenchi Muyo was one of the iconic romantic comedies of the 90s, and to say that it didn't influence other things afterwards would
Which
be
is
discourteous of it. But will we say that most of it is good? Not necessarily. Certain segments of Tenchi Muyo were pretty good,
yeah, and you're right.
but
You're
not
right.
all of it.
And that was quite a title back then in the
And
90s.
that one is more or less one of the original harem male targeted romantic comedies.
See, when I'm having this discussion, I think of titles like Love Hina
Yep,
in
which
more
was the
recent
next
times.
big one at the time after Tenchi Muyo.
In the early aughts, I guess, right?
Mhm.
Where does something like oh, I forgot, like Toradora sit? I
I'd
mean,
say
is this
Toradora
apples?
is one of the best ones of
Is
its
it
time.
apples and oranges because it was originally a light novel?
Not necessarily,
Because and this is another part of adaptations. Maybe we have
because
to
we're
talk.
talking purely on the anime.
Hmm. So there's those, and then I guess so. Would that so for the shonen and seinen, where would Kaguya-Sama sit then? Like, would it be this generation's it title when it comes to that?
It just might. Now, people, from what I can tell, say that the ending isn't as strong as you would like it to be. That's just based off of anecdotal things I've read.
Mm-hmm.
Other stronger contenders could be titles like Horimiya, but that's also kind of up in the air in terms of uh, whether or not the ending will stick. I actually don't remember if that ended or not. But that was another one of the more popular shonen romantic comedies that came out in the last little while.
Mm-hmm.
I know Golden Time is well regarded. But that's also by the Toradora creator, if I'm not mistaken.
What's it called again?
Golden Time.
Golden Time. Okay.
I hope I'm not getting my facts mixed up on that one. But I'm
Yeah.
pretty
Well,
sure that's by the Toradora creator.
we can. There. You can always look it up, right?
And I'm right.
Thank you. Golden
And
Time.
then, huh. I think it's because I want to say around like the mid to early 2010s, I stopped reading as many of them. Another one that comes to mind is Nisekoi.
Yeah, and there's I keep seeing the advertisements in there, by the way.
It's I think overall it's solid, but as with most shonen romantic comedies, the mushy middle happens with it where they know it's popular, but they can't progress the plot too quickly, so then they need to add episodic chapters to just
Justify the length.
yes, to just keep it going as long as it can until maybe the popularity polls indicate that its popularity is slipping. So now they're like, okay, we
Okay,
need to
time to finish
actually
this.
get things
Let's
moving.
get the yeah. Let's finish with a flourish, right?
And did he make the right choice? Yeah, it was kind of predictable.
Okay, so
Oh, I my preferred choice was not the one.
okay. Okay, so
And it usually isn't, to be honest. Well, and also another one that I thought of just now that I surprised I didn't think of was the quintessential quintuplets. That
that
one,
which recently I know ended with a movie,
yes,
right?
and all the manga ended not too long ago as well. That one is also pretty well regarded.
Okay. Which and maybe that'll be a watch at some point. Okay, so let's go to the shojo side.
Oh, and
Please.
I cannot believe we did not bring up anything by Mitsuru Adachi when it comes to
No.
the older stuff.
Yes, touch. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, Touch
Basically, touch.
or H2.
Mhm.
I haven't watched those or read those. I've only read Cross Game.
The problem with that is those. Well, I was about to say they haven't had that much of a release in North America.
They haven't.
But then again, it might be one of those it missed the boat type things because it might be too old of a title to attempt now to try and publish.
I think
Which I
so
think is
because
which
while you know being a sports series does not help, because more often than not, you either need to be really engaging, have hot guys, or not be too long,
in
or
this
some amalgamation of the above.
and this wasn't touch.
And even then, that's not guaranteed.
Yes. I have my touch jokes, but I think I've used them up
Or it
already.
needs hot girls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
hot girls or hot. It needs hot
Yeah,
characters
you're right on
that
the dot.
fans can ship.
Yeah. Although that was more like that was a pretty dramatic series too. Not really a not really a comedy, but it was good.
Which one?
Uh, well, I thought a touch more as well, maybe because I only what I saw was the movies too. But
Oh, okay.
like what did that have like its share of humor in it? Like I'm
Well,
trying
I
to.
didn't read any of them. But
Okay.
speaking of cross game, it Adachi's humor always felt more like not
Funny.
ha ha funny, but he funny
I
or
was about
heh
to
heh
say.
funny,
I was about to say more funny ho ho, not funny ha ha. Like
and
some,
and has some slapstick moments as well at times,
okay.
but nothing like too outrageous. Not I wouldn't. It's not like Cromartie High School funny in that sense. It's not
Okay.
like yeah, or it's not Gintama funny.
Hmm. All right. Well, okay. I now I'm tempted to. There's a part of me that wants to go into the shojo side, but something tells me that might be a little too long, and maybe not totally the purpose of
Well,
where I want this discussion, the talk, where the talk really was tonight. But
what about Fruits Basket?
fair. Okay.
Did you
So
watch Fruits Basket or read it?
no, no, I only saw the original television series.
Okay.
So and on the topic of TV adaptations, and I know we'll like I'd like to revisit the debate again later on, right? Just because not all anime adaptations have gone well too.
On the shoujo side,
Just
or even
generally,
yeah. I
just
guess if
generally.
I wanted to quickly mention like stuff that I would imagine is very influential on the shoujo side, for better or for worse, uh, Boys Over Flowers.
Hmm.
We mentioned Fruits Basket.
Okay, mentioned Utena.
Yeah, Revolutionary Girl Utena. Or in High School Host Club.
Okay.
Vampire Knight.
Hmm.
Nowadays, at least within the last 10, 15 years, I would say Yona of the Dawn.
I would say I totally recognize that title. I know I don't always get.
And I really do think My Love Story is memorable in the sense that it did go the male protagonist route, which doesn't happen too often.
In a shoujo.
Yeah, not too often. Usually when the male is the main character in a shoujo manga, it's usually titles where it's a male ensemble cast,
Hmm.
like Seiho Boys High School or Here is Greenwood, things like that.
Oh well, I found that
Or
interesting. You brought out Here's Greenwood because
mhm.
that's pretty old school and one of those ones I really liked back in the day.
There's one by Viz that I feel like it's kind of like that. I don't remember the name right now. I think it's called Colorful Days. I know I mentioned it in a past podcast.
And I remember and I recognize the name. See, this is strange because like as much as like this is probably the what the hell do I know sometimes coming out of me. I never thought of Greenwood as shoujo. I have
But it is.
trouble. Yeah. Okay. It's just I never. Some are more can like the terms I get confused with the terms at the best of times, right?
Mhm. And you know what? It's just like, you know, even though I really like my shoujo and josei manga, I do think I still read more male targeted stuff because, I could easily pull out more like examples of shonen romantic comedies, but then even though like as much as I love Nana and as much as I love Banana Fish and as much as I love Kimi ni Todake and Lovely Complex, which I also thought were iconic, but I didn't think of them until literally 10 seconds ago,
Hmm.
that it's just a little harder for me to think of for whatever reason.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just I wonder where when it's all said and done with Kaguya-Sama, where will it sit among those titles? I
Yeah.
mean, it
You know,
doesn't sit, like I mean, I've enjoyed it to this point. I've really enjoyed it. I cannot say I haven't.
because I always feel like the best ones, more often than not, are not too long and don't have too much of that middle filler content.
Hmm.
So another another favorite of mine, Eyes. I wouldn't say that's an iconic one, but I felt like there wasn't a whole lot of filler
Well,
in
yeah.
between. I felt like the plot did continuously progress because the tone of Eyes was of a more like dramatic tone, so to speak.
Hmm.
It wasn't like an outright harem style romance.
No, no, it wasn't.
That's why I like Blue Box a little more too. I feel like current that's the current like non harem style romance series in Weekly Shonen Jump right now.
Hmm.
Whereas the harem one is Ayakashi Triangle. Because those are the ones I always preferred, to be honest. Like the more like new, air quotes, more nuanced ones. Kind of depends on the title, because we can't say that Eyes didn't have its fan service.
No, no doubt about it. Well, we're talking. Well, that's another story altogether.
I was so mad when Viz censored those earlier copies of Eyes. I was not happy.
That was hilarious. I mean,
Ice
that was,
Swimming was
and
not happy.
I know we had a conversation about it back then too, back in the original, yeah, in the original
Took
in
them
the
to I
original
think
run of the
volume
series.
11 to stop censoring it.
Hmm?
It took them up to volume 11 or 10 to stop censoring it.
Yeah. But yeah, I get it. I sort of get that, right? So yeah, it just has it just I cannot say, you know, I don't know what else to really add to that, right? So
Yeah.
um
You know,
sorry,
I feel like
because
for me in the shonen side, there's this huge gap between like Toradora and now, because I really didn't watch that many things after that. Like, because that was around the time when my anime watching just dropped off.
well, and yeah, and then the Toradora came around for me when I was, at the end of the first run of this podcast, right?
Yeah, because it somehow worked out. Like going back to how I was saying that, like a lot of the better ones don't take too long to tell their story. Toradora was one season, that was it,
Hmm.
and they just so happened to time it so that it like the light novel did end at the same time as the anime.
Yeah, it was like what 10 volumes or something.
Yes.
Okay, well done. Having said that about the thoughts on fillers, though, I mean, and supporting characters, keep in mind this is why like Kaguya has just been an easy read too, because of the way they're supporting characters. They put a profile on them, and they have some interesting stories too, right?
I think that's a credit to um Akasaka's writing at that point. And it's also not in Weekly Shonen Jump. It is a Young Jump title.
Mm-hmm. There's a difference. I get it. Although that's something I admit I'd have to look up. But well, two more things. A couple more things I want to bring up about this, and maybe about other adaptations and what have you. And that this is what this starts to get a little bit more excruciating when I start to mention these. As I read those last couple volumes in 13, 14, and 15,
Mm-hmm.
they made some references to things that at this point we're never going to see. Specifically, they made references to the live action movies.
Oh, they did?
Yes, there are some like just some comedic just some comedic thoughts for the live action movies. You look like so and so. You look like so and so. And basically the basically it was a reference to the actors and actors that played them in the live action.
Oh.
And I just thought, oh, like and that's what makes it so excruciating, right? That's what made it so like reading those references so tough. Because what is it? I'm looking up, like, there's a joke about how about Kaguya's resemblance to Hashimoto, Kana Hashimoto, who plays her in the movie, right? And then there's a similar reference to Shirogane as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so excruciating to hear about that, and just to give love to Shirogane, Shohirano played him in the movies. It's so tough to hear about this because we know about all these live action adaptations of recent IPs that we'll never see. And for all the talk about live action adaptations we've had, about failed ones, failed attempts at them, especially if they're Western, I guess. But there has been a successful formula, at least in Japan. And I think having a chance to see at least successful attempts, might at least give us a little bit more insight as to what can and cannot work here. Because we've only, like us here, we've only seen the failures, or by and large seen just the failures. And there's been such a hate for any attempts at any sort of live action that there is a large segment of our fandom that under no circumstance will give it one a chance. But there's been some successful adaptations. As I said, it's a chance for the media mix to expand itself and find exposure in ways to audiences that wouldn't otherwise see them. I mean, the actors, I know that the actors who depicted Kaguya and Shirogane are very popular.
Mm.
So, and within all of this, there are other adaptations that are worth watching. That would have been that would have gotten a lot of curiosity. There have been at least 2 Meizane Koku adaptations. There has been an attempt at a Ranma live action adaptation, which might be more funny haha than anything else. Eyes and Video Girl Eye. On the topic of Katsura and Eyes, I know that there are live actions that have existed over time.
Yes.
One way in the past for Video Girl Eye, but one of a little bit more recent, within the last 3-4 years, and one for Eyes as well, probably a little over 5 years ago.
I do remember when that happened, yeah.
Yes. Right? I mean, I'm looking at my Indigo box. Yes, I got something from Indigo before everything happened there. And by the way, that's an ongoing issue. The Indigo site is up, but only on a browsing basis, not on a shopping basis, just to update that story from last week. But that box contains a copy of Wodokoi. And Wodokoi had a live action movie a couple years ago, which I would have loved to see this. And I think it was shown during an online version of Fantasia. I would have loved to see that, but there's no sign we'll ever see that. And so going back to Kaguya-Sama, there are 2 live action movies as well. And, you know, wouldn't you be curious to watch that, just to see it? And then judge for yourself.
A movie or a TV series? I forgot.
No, it was 2 feature films, right?
Oh, okay.
And within all of that comes a little little factoid that I found out, and that's in the person who plays Tsubame Koyasu. I told you this at the theater, right?
Yes.
Right. And in the Japanese version, she is played by an actress, or a voice actress by the name of Haruka Fukuhara. She plays her in the anime. And coincidentally, she also plays her in the live action movie. So Fukuhara-san is, as far as I know, well, I'm pretty sure there's more of it out there, but she's the only person I know of who plays the same character in both an animated and live action version of the same title. We've talked a lot about actors playing the same character in both Japanese and English, but this is a new one for me. And I'm curious to know, and, you know, to whoever's listening to this, and God knows how many are listening to this. Do you know of any cases where you have somebody play the same character in both an animated version and in a live action version of the same title? Well, more specifically, Japanese titles. I think we have enough. We have a fair amount of that already in North America. I'm already thinking corner gas, but
Couldn't tell you.
yeah. But I thought that was an interesting point to know that was the case here. That the woman who played Tsubame is in both the live action and the Japanese version. Same person. I thought that was really, really a cool fact.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, those are some of my own thoughts. Oh, and I guess the last thought. I was talking with a friend, and she told me something that never dawned upon me. There's been this trend, the whole idea of manga boxes, right?
Okay.
So yeah, Demon Slayer, we have that. I just purchased one for Wodokoi. Dragon Ball has a couple of those. One Piece certainly has a few. Jujutsu Kaisen. The idea of of manga box sets doesn't. I'm told doesn't seem like a common one in Japan. This seems to be something that's very specific outside of Japan. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, you're more the manga guy, so I mean, I just thought I'd bring that one out because I want to see what you'd say about that.
Well, perhaps it's because in Japan, paper is more of it's a little more scarce, if I'm not mistaken. There's only so many trees that grow in Japan. I believe they do import more wooden than they uh than
Then they're
they
able to
can
produce and
produce on their
consume.
own. It's why a lot of those weekly and monthly manga magazines are on pretty flimsy paper because they're meant to be disposable.
Mm-hmm. And why you probably don't see what when it comes to like being able to do sets in like volumes.
Yeah, perhaps it's just not a thing there
You think it's a
as a
cultural?
result. I
Yeah,
don't really know why.
maybe it's a cultural thing too.
Because when you look at anime and you look at music CDs, and there's limited editions up the ass for those.
Mm-hmm.
And that's largely because it's the super fans that sustain that industry by paying those overpriced single Blu-ray discs because they still fucking do that.
Oh yeah, there, yes.
There are some more sets every now and then,
But yeah,
but
it
by and large, it's still single Blu-ray releases.
yeah, but yeah, it's just that.
And in the case of CDs, like music CDs, they'll just release 5 different versions, and then they'll each add different photo
I
cards of your favorite singers so
was
that you
about to
can
say
collect
different
them all.
covers, but yeah, but they'd have the same content. Each disc would have basically the same content or something, or maybe one
Yeah,
different track. I don't know.
more often than not, it's just different extras.
Hey.
But if there's if there's a standard and like a special edition, maybe they'll add the music videos in the special edition, whereas the standard edition would just have the CD.
Okay. Anyway, but what? So what about box sets then? What about a box set for graphic novels? For what's the word? Tankobon?
Yes, in Japan you would call a single book a tankobon. It's interesting in that like there might be box sets for manga in Japan. We just don't really know about it, but uh, I guess it's here. It is a very collector's mentality to have everything in a box set.
Yes, I was about to say maybe it's a cultural thing for us, our fandom, right? Our fandom here.
And I know we've said this before, but more often than not, box sets only happen for manga here when it's a title so popular that they can justify doing that.
Yeah. So yeah, I just rifed off a bunch of titles that would fit that
Well,
mold, right?
Jujutsu Kaisen doesn't have a box set yet, but I imagine it will. I'd be surprised if it didn't at this point.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, those are we. I just brought up a bunch of titles, right? Like to use another term, AAA titles, right?
Hmm.
S level titles. Is that the word?
Yeah, I'd say so.
So where? Yeah, and it has me wondering. Okay, Kaguya-Sama isn't quite that, is it? Where am I wrong?
Well, maybe not to Viz, because
True, because when you have when you have titles like Dragon Ball or Bleach
or One
or
Piece,
One Piece, it's
and
just downhill from there, isn't it?
you don't see nearly as many shojo manga box sets from Viz. It really was only Vampire Knight, or in High School Host Club, and Blackbird.
Hmm,
That's a testament to how well those did for them
yeah. Okay.
as of when they finished
You think part?
publishing.
Yeah, but do you think part of it? I said we hinted. I kept using the phrase "the culture of our fandom." Do you think part of it's also just the binge read?
That plays into it.
Because here I
Oh,
am reading like here I am basically in as many days I'm very close to finishing 4 volumes of the manga. I mean that for me that's an accomplishment.
yeah.
But yeah.
It's interesting to see the differences in how like Viz puts out their box sets versus how Kodansha puts out their box sets.
Oh, what gets your attention there? And maybe we'll leave this as a last point for tonight.
Well, Kodansha will sometimes do like box sets of only a few volumes.
Oh, that. Okay, so not complete series
So
necessarily.
like you look at the Attack on Titan box sets and they've done like a few. It's like 1 through 7 or 8 and then like 9 through 16 or whatever. Uh How I Got Reincarnated as a Slime has I think at least 2 box sets at this point.
Mm,
Rent a Girlfriend's box set came out not too long ago. That's I believe just the first 6 volumes. The Fairy Tale box sets were like it's several volumes in a box, not
okay.
like bigger boxes.
All right.
And that's not to say that Kodansha doesn't do that because they did do a Princess Jellyfish box set, and I'm a little surprised that that happened for it.
Mm,
I guess it did do well enough for them to justify it. You would assume.
yeah. Well, maybe we can have that discussion another time. Okay. We have some breaking news. Um, I think we can continue this discussion another time. I'm sure. Okay, Kevin. But I do think before we end tonight, we should come up with this breaking news.
Oh wait, one more thing though.
Yes.
I realized I didn't actually talk about my thoughts of the movie as a
Okay,
whole.
let's talk about yeah, okay, give me your thoughts on the movie. I really do want to end off on this one, but go what's your thoughts on the movie? Just how did you think what did you think about it?
So I feel like the fact that it still felt as if the segments were broken off as if it was still a TV episode was interesting. I actually didn't think they'd do that. I thought it'd just be like it have more of a flow, but they had those like half episode to episode breaks in between segments.
I thought it worked for me.
I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
It's just I didn't know if they were gonna still do that
Well,
in
it
the
sounds
movie.
I think it caught a few fans off guard because you heard when they did the end of each segment, you kind of got this like I thought I it felt like I was going to hear crickets at points.
Hmm.
They didn't get where they were going with that, but I can understand because that's how they end off chapters as well with that feel, right?
I also think this was obviously planned in that they because a lot of serious things happened in this movie and in this storyline. It it does feel different than in the earlier like anime episodes and the manga chapters because so to provide my experience with this franchise, I read volumes 1 through 4
Mm-hmm.
and I happened to read like this segment of chapters that cover this movie and the events that happen following the movie that the end of the movie alludes to.
Mm-hmm. And that's where
So
I'm about to be.
specifically the Christmas party that you and Miko attend.
Mhm.
Basically, it was Subame's Christmas party.
Yeah, and that's where what I'm about to read myself. So I'm now curious.
So it was just very interesting that they picked this part. And it works because it was like a tight enough arc where you can have this whole thing self contained and it gives an excuse for fans to go watch it because it's canon material. This is not a filler movie. So we're going off of the whole Demon Slayer thing that it set a precedent for.
Basically, as I said, it becomes an advertisement for either continuing the series in the manga or waiting for the next set of the anime, next core of the anime.
And, I gave it some thought afterwards. And while I would say that in certain segments and moments, in terms of the direction, in terms of like how the music was presented to us and how certain shots were filmed, it did feel more movie like. But I will say, in most other segments, it did feel like just more of the TV show.
Mm.
And you can have that debate of, was the quality of this animation as a whole, good enough to justify this as a movie and worth my $15 to $16? Like, depends.
I guess it depends on how much you're into the series.
Yes.
Like I think I'm more into it than you are at this point. So that's
Because you've read things chronologically and you've watched things chronologically. I did not.
okay.
So the only reason why I happened to read like what chapters, I don't know, 140 to 180 or whatever it was, is because I saw somebody link something about Kaguya to like a certain scene. I saw the scene, got very curious, and then so I read one or two chapters about that, and then I just kind of got addicted and just read like 40 to 50 chapters in one sitting.
Mm. I was like
Like without
maybe
not realizing like how much time had passed.
it's sort of same me with just the 10 chapters uh, this afternoon for me.
So uh so I actually have not been introduced to Miko or the Impossible Four
Yes.
or
Oh wait. Okay. Well.
like some of the other siblings of the other main characters as well,
Mm,
actually.
okay.
So it was like obviously because I spoiled myself. Like I read those chapters so then I learned who those were, but so it was just interesting coming at it from that perspective. And if I didn't happen to read those chapters, I wouldn't have gone to see the movie.
So okay. So it was a worthwhile, but through a different approach. That's what it
I
sounds
still thought it was worthwhile.
like. Okay.
Just because like I don't mind the animation quality not being like A plus tier. Uh others might. And now I am remembering how in the ANN review of the movie, uh, the fact that the animation, wasn't up to movie standards was a sticking point for that reviewer.
Although I did think it was at least above average from what my memory of the TV series. But okay. Anyway,
But I would say, in terms of like what they chose to cover, yes, this was a great opportunity for them to uh, make this into a movie to milk some more money out of us. And I think, yeah, it was. I thought it was well executed as a whole, because now you get that deeper dive into Miyuki and Kaguya's personalities and why they are the people that they are, and how they approach like their feelings towards one another, how they approach life, how they approach like dealing with the troubles that they're facing, or how they don't deal with it. And to the people who feel like that's a little jarring, I say it's fine. It's good to have a little depth in your romantic comedies every once in a while. That's why I like. That's why one of my favorite romantic comedies, or one of my favorite comedies, I should say, is shit. I should have remembered this one. What's that wedding one? The
wedding.
one,
Oh,
not Wedding Crashers.
we're talking like a real like a
It's I'm thinking Bridesmaids.
okay.
It's why I really like Bridesmaids. It's not a romantic comedy. It's more a comedy, but it's the fact that like the main character is a bridesmaid, or I think she's even the maid of honor for her friend, but it's like the worst time it's the worst period of her life at that point.
Mm.
So you just see how this woman kind of falls apart for the first 2/3 of the movie.
Okay.
And you're like, oh damn, like this is real. Like these are things that happen to people. As funny as it is, it's like, oh
Snap.
yeah.
Okay. But overall, you thought it was just worth going to.
Yes.
Okay.
I would recommend watching it. Well, if you're already invested in Kaguya-Sama Love is War, yes, this is a must. You need to watch it, or else you're gonna have no context for when the next season comes out.
Either that or they'll put the movie on Crunchyroll anyway.
Yeah, and I really want to see the Christmas party animated, because I'm I'm slightly more invested in that at the moment, because I always love when more secondary characters get that focus. I just love it when it happens, because it just proves that yes, we're here too, and we have our own shit that goes on, and we have our own problems. We're not just side characters that are meant to flesh out the main cast or the main couple.
Mm-hmm. Well, so that's why I said there isn't. It doesn't feel like there's filler there. There's something engaging about everybody else too.
Yeah, it's like with Kimi ni Todoke, when yes, oh, spoilers for Kimi ni Todoke. Yes, Sawako and forgot the guy's name. I can't believe it. When the main couple get together,
Yeah.
and then they did start telling like Ayano's story, and they started telling Chizuru and Ryu's story.
Isn't that getting a
Yeah,
lot like
this is
that?
what this is like, I'm here for this.
Well, that's about to get a live action adaptation.
Again?
I think so. I think Netflix is about to debut it, or
Oh, they're
maybe
doing a
it's
new
the
one.
present one. Maybe it's the present one, but Netflix has it.
That was also another very influential, or very like iconic, like shoujo manga at the time. That sold insanely well in Japan.
Hmm.
Less so here, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, okay. So you finish your thought? I'm
Yes.
sorry, I have to cut it off. Okay.
No worries. I was done anyway.
Thank you. Oh, as I said, there is some news that's just come down the pipe. So let's. I do feel like we have to change gears for a couple minutes and end it off on this note. Kyoto News the story is broken out on various outlets. Kyoto News, I think, had it first, and it's been elaborated on since. Crunchyroll is now reporting that legendary manga artist Leiji Matsumoto has passed away at the
Oh
age of
shit.
85 of acute heart failure. So this is just coming over the wires over the last hour or so. He was 85 years old, passed away at a Tokyo hospital once again due to acute heart failure. We don't really need to say too much about Matsumoto's accomplishments. They really do go without saying, but let's go through a couple titles: Space Battleship Yamato, Captain Harlock, Galaxy Express 999, Queen Esmeraldas. List goes on and on. Yeah, you know that others who are well versed in the Leiji verse will be talking over the next couple days. I know we'll probably have a few more thoughts next time the roundtable reconvenes. I guess people who you probably should in our fandom and in this circle here that will probably be worth hearing from over the next couple days that we are aware of might want to pay attention to the words of Matt Alt, Fred Schott, and Dave Merrill over the next couple days. And I'm sure they'll reveal their feelings as the news has come down. So we'll end on that note. So once again, legendary creator Leiji Matsumoto has passed away at the age of 85.
Wow.
And yeah, I know that's news. Obviously, that caught you by surprise. Yeah, it's just come down the pipe. So I do want to take some time to digest that before we talk about it. And I know, and I get the feeling the others will want to talk about that when we reconvene. Maybe we should just leave it at that. Anyway, hope your Sunday is going well. Hope everyone out there will enjoy the rest of the weekend, and we'll get back to you hopefully very soon. Thanks for listening.